Welcome to the DRGN SLYR Podcast by East Idaho Credit Union. I am Steven. With me, as always, is Bailey, and today's guest, Jasmine Rae from the Jasmine Rae Hair Co. Jasmine, welcome.
Thank you.
So nice to have you here.
Yes, I'm excited.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start off. I bet most people will know what you do, just based on the name of your organization. But why don't you tell us, what do you do?
So I'm actually a hairdresser, and a lot of people miss that part, but I've been a hairdresser for about 17 years now. And I, probably about 6 years ago, got on the internet, and I had a couple clients asking me, like, how do you curl your hair like that? Like, can you show me? You know, because I started curling it with a specific tool called a wand, curling wand. And it's kind of a newer concept, but I just got on Instagram and started curling my hair, and I tagged the company that I got the wand from, and they reached out to me, and they're like, hey, you want to do a video for us? And I was like, no, I'm not a beauty blogger. That is not what I do. And I was like,
famous last words right there, I think.
Right?
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, what if we pay you like 10% of what you sell? And my husband was like, it can't hurt. Like, you make a couple $100, you know, like what could go wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So I did a live video, terrified, like absolutely terrified, because I'm like, I can't unsay things that I might say.
Yeah.
So it went fine. I kind of went into education mode because that was my background of like, I'm a hairdresser. I'm going to talk to people like they're a customer, right? Like,
yeah.
Anyway, and it kind of opened up this world of education online where I could reach so many women and teach them how to take care of their hair. Because oddly enough, a lot of women don't know how to properly like wash their hair, how they should be brushing their hair, like simple things that I'm like, sure, people know this, you know, and they just did it. Even my own clients. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe I haven't even taught you this, you know? So I started teaching online just simple things about like my knowledge that I have in the hair world. And oh my gosh, people ate it up like crazy. And they're like, oh, I didn't know I was washing my hair wrong this whole time. And then they started doing all these things and noticing that their hair was in a lot better shape, or that it was finally growing. And so then people wanted to share it, right? Because they're like so excited that something's finally working. So then people started sharing it like crazy and tagging me. And it grew so fast that I was like, I have no idea what's happening. This is so weird. Like, in like a couple of weeks, I had like 10,000 followers. And then a few weeks later, I had 50,000 followers. And I was like,
crazy.
What is happening? Like, it was so strange. But then I thought, oh my gosh, like this is an opportunity for me to actually help people with a pain point that a lot of women have, you know? And I think like hair is our main accessory. Like you have to wear it every day. You can't, it's not like a pair of jeans that you know, can wear one day and then put them back in the closet. Like it's on your head every day. And so I think for women, when their hair is feeling really unhealthy or looking badly, in their opinion, you know, like it kind of like does something to their soul. And so I'm like, this is something I can teach that can be really helpful. So I just started pumping out the content of education. And that was back when Instagram, you could just do that. You didn't have to like put all these images and GIFs and, you know, all these things on it. It's a lot more complicated now, but it's been amazing and really rewarding to be able to help women and have such like a bigger reach than just who's in my chair.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's interesting. We had a guest on a little while back, and they actually make custom cowboy hats.
Oh, cool.
And one of the questions that we talked about was like, well, what hat is appropriate for like your face and your head? And the thing that we came up with is whichever one makes you feel great.
Yeah.
Right?
I
That's
love
the
that.
one. And hair feels like, I don't know, I think it matters to everybody.
Yeah.
Actually.
It does.
Including men. And
Yeah.
I don't know that we would admit that.
You don't talk
very
about
readily.
it a whole lot,
Yeah.
but it is like a big point of confidence for men too.
Yeah. And it's just about like when you feel good, you act different.
Yes.
Right? It
for sure.
changes the way you interact with the world. And that's significant, and that's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
And you've blown up just showing people how to feel
Yeah.
good.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been very rewarding. But like with anything good, it also comes with the hard, you know, and so.
Tell us about that. What
Well,
hard comes with that?
Yeah. So I think, you know, I got to a point where I had more opportunity to teach more and to work with different brands. And do collaborations on hair products and things like that. It was just a lot more opportunity, like laid itself out in a really big way. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is really exciting and something I'm incredibly passionate about too.
Yeah.
So then I've got 4 kids and fought really hard to get them here. We went through all the infertility stuff, all the meds and treatments, and it was something that I was like, okay, when I was a little girl, I always wanted to be a mom, and that was like, what are you going to be when you grow up? I'm going to be a mom, And so I finally got my kiddos coming, and got them here and got that dialed in, and I had 2 boys, and that's when kind of all this opportunity, it was crazy because I actually kind of went viral, and how it happened was I was pregnant with I can't remember, second or third. I can't remember. It feels like forever ago.
Your second, I think.
Yeah. And
I don't know.
Still in the blanks for me, please. But it was that year we had of the snowpocalypse, right? Like where everybody was buried in snow, like everywhere. And it was like record year for snow, and people couldn't get out of their neighborhoods. And I was so pregnant. I was due January 11th. That's when I had him. It was my second. And we were buried in snow, and I was waiting, and every mom can relate to this who's had a child. I was like, okay, I got to plan my wash day for my hair so that I wash it right before I have the baby so that I can go like a while with the newborn of like the first 10 days without having to worry about washing my hair, right? So I'm like trying to plan this. It's so silly. And I was like, okay, still haven't had him. I'll just go one more day. I'll go one more day. And I ended up going 33 days.
Oh my goodness.
Without washing my hair. And I kind of started documenting the whole thing because everybody was home and stuck in their neighborhoods and couldn't get out. And I started documenting it, and people were like, this girl's insane. Like, and my hair looked great. Yeah. I will say my hair looked great, and it was so
At
dirty.
33 days, you're like, it looks awesome.
And it's because I've trained it. And so that's part of what I do is I teach people how to train their hair to go longer between washes, and like that it's all kind of connected of like your actual natural oils are really good for your hair. And when we overwash it, like we kind of cause trauma to our hair by washing it too much. Because if you think in the olden days, like, the back when it was like people wore flowers because they smelled so bad because they never bathed, like that was when corsages and like all that stuff came into play. But these girls like would go months without washing their hair, but they had the most beautiful long hair, and it was in these braids, and I'm kind of like, I think we are wrecking our hair by doing like putting all this product in it, putting all this bleach in it. Like we're washing it and washing it and washing it with soap, and we're just like trashing it, So I had trashed my hair in hair school. I went dark, like every blonde has to do in their lifetime, right?
Yes.
And I was like in a depression. I was like, I hate my hair. I wish I was blonde again. I'm not happy anymore. Like I'd see blondes on the street and be like, I'm so sad. Anyways, so I had all my hair school friends like take my hair back blonde in like a matter of 2 weeks. We did like 2 blonding sessions, fried my hair off horribly. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I know I used to have good hair genetically. My mom and dad have great hair. I know I can get my hair back, but it was like trashed. And so I tried all these different things, different methods. And ultimately it was like stretching out my washes that kind of made my hair come back to life. So I was like, there's something to this. And I would normally go like 10 to 15 days. But then that moment of like, oh, it looks great, actually. I'm just going to go one more day. And it just kept happening. And I was documenting it all and ended up going like a whole month. And people were like, look at this girl's hair. It's 30 days dirty and she still looks beautiful. And that's when people were like, teach me how to do this, I don't do that. Like, that's not my norm. I don't go a month without washing my hair. I'm normally like probably 15 to 17 days.
Well, it's funny. This whole time I'm like looking at your hair.
Yeah, how many days dirty?
Is this right now?
Yeah, what's your wild guess?
Oh, right here. Let's see. I think you're 10 days in here.
I'm probably 15.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, dang. That's
I actually
impressive.
was like, I'm going to wash my hair last night so I could have fresh, clean hair for this. But I'm like, Nobody's going to see my hair, I don't think. So why does it matter? Just one more day.
They might. Anybody listening, just
Yeah.
flip on the video. Look at her hair. Yeah. That's 15 right there.
Dang,
Yeah.
that is
And
impressive.
it looks beautiful.
It
Thank
looks
you.
way better than mine, and I washed mine last night, which is my problem.
You're like, what the heck? You need to get on this wagon for sure.
100%.
But yeah, sorry, I get on tangents. But
Yeah, what do we even ask you? What are
I
we
know
even talking
you
about
said the
anymore?
challenges.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think like trying to balance being a mom and then taking all this on was a lot, and it was really terrifying and scary. And I was like, I really don't want this to take me away from my kids, you know.
Mhm.
And I think I've been able to find a way, and I won't say balance because I feel like that's such a silly word that like
Yeah.
people are like, how do you balance? I'm like, nobody's balancing.
Yeah,
If you think
yeah.
they're really balancing, like they're fooling you, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's just like you kind of have to wear different hats, and that's how I've always looked at it. And I explain this to my kids this way too, because I'm like, okay. And I actually did like an object lesson one night with my kiddos because to explain to them like what mommy does, you know. So I was like, this is my mommy hat, and it was like the best hat that I had. I found like the biggest, coolest hat. It was like a Mad Hatter from a costume hat. It was like, and so I'm like, this is my mommy hat, and I'm like, this is my work hat, and this is my like my social media or my internet hat, you know, trying to make sense to them. And I'm like, these are different hats that mom has to wear at different times.
Mhm.
And when I have my mommy hat on, that's when it's the best, you know. But sometimes I have to take my mommy hat off and put my work hat on, and I got to go to work.
Mhm.
And then I was like, what happens if I try to wear all my hats? And I tried to put them all on, and they all fell off my head.
I'm sure they love that.
Yeah, and they thought it was funny. So I was just like, sometimes, you know, but it's been really a good visual for me too, because I'm
Yeah.
like, when I take off like my influencer hat or my work hat, I put my mommy hat on, and that's all I'm wearing, you know, and it's my fun hat, and it's my hat that like I looked forward to wearing the most. And I think that's been a great visual for my kids. And it's funny because I teach them like, mom like makes commercials and teaches classes on the internet, you know? And so sometimes when I'm filming in their home, I'm like, I'm making a commercial right now, you know? So I'm wearing my, like, I'm making a commercial hat, you
So I
know?
need you to shut up, please.
I know, exactly. And that's like one of the challenges of like working from home. But then I used to have my salon in my home too for
okay.
years, like
Oh,
over
yeah.
a decade. And it was so nice during the season of like being pregnant and having babies
Sure.
and nursing and that whole
Yeah.
thing. But then as I started taking on more online, I started stepping back from like time behind the chair
Right.
because I realized, wow, I can reach thousands of more people and help them versus like one person in my chair who, yes, I get to like physically be with them, which is can't ever be replaced, right?
Sure.
But I started realizing that like I can have more impact in a broader spectrum here than I can here. And I still do a little bit of that. Like I work one day a week doing hair still behind the chair, and I love it. But I have like kind of stepped more in here, stepped back more in the hair world of doing hair. So I moved my salon out of my house finally, and it's been great to take that out of my home, just that aspect of work. I can separate from home now, and so it just makes home feel a little bit more peaceful.
Yeah.
So
I do have this visual of you literally wearing these different hats while you're like you wearing the Mad Hatter hat when you're walking around cooking dinner or something. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I
that's
should
funny.
do that sometime. That
should.
would be actually pretty funny.
I do think there's something really interesting about this balance conversation, though,
For
because
sure.
there's so many ways to get it wrong.
Right.
I feel like.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've always felt like is, look, my life has been highly out of balance at different points in my life, right? Like when I was in school, it was highly out of balance, skewed towards school.
Right.
When I was like having young children, it was highly skewed out of balance
Yeah.
towards like taking care of newborns and
Right.
stuff like that.
You're surviving.
That's right. And so I think the mistake that people make is they want to go for balance per day, which is almost impossible
Right.
to do.
Yeah.
I think what you're trying to get it to is like a balanced life in its aggregate,
Yes.
right? That's what you're really trying to do.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you ever want to do something truly incredible, it takes a commiserate level of commitment, right? It takes incredible commitment to
For sure.
something, to do something amazing.
Yeah.
And that's a little uncomfortable to just be like, hey, I know my life's going to be a little out of balance for the next 3 months,
Yeah.
but that's what it takes.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. And you kind of, I just say it as like, I just thrive in the chaos. Like once you just kind of learn to accept that like it's impossible for you to control everything, then I think there's like a freedom that's born of like, I can control what I can control, and the rest. And I think a lot of moms deal with anxiety. In the beginning, I had a lot of anxieties about like, how am I going to do all this? I can't balance my life and everything's unbalanced, And I think when I learned that, I actually did this course that my cousin that I grew up with, I mean, we were like making plays at Thanksgiving. She's like one of my best friends, but she's dove a lot into the world of anxiety to try to help people. And she's incredibly smart and brilliant. But she taught me that there is the things you can control and there's the things you can't control. Because I used to lay in bed at night and that was the worst time. My head would race of like, what was that noise? Someone breaking into our house. Like, if someone broke in, how would I protect my kids? Like, who would I get first? And I'm like planning all these things and feeling like a crazy person.
Mm-hmm.
And
who would I get first?
Yeah. And I'm like, where's the gun? And especially when my husband's out of town, I like get the gun and like make sure it's like safe and like stored. But I'm like okay,
in the bed next to you.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, it's ready to use. My husband's like, you're not gonna shoot anybody. And I'm like, I don't know what I would do, but I'm trying to think. I'm trying to plan, And so finally, when I was like, okay, that's probably not gonna happen. Like ever. Could it happen? I teach my kids this too, because my oldest deals with some anxiety. And I'm like, you get to be in control of these things. And we like make lists of things that we're in control in. And it's like these things that we worry about that take a lot of our time and energy, we have no control over actually. So giving that our energy is so incredibly pointless. And it just pulls from us and wears on us and for no reason, And so I think that's been something that's really helped me in trying to figure out balance and trying to figure out how to, do X, Y, and Z, and feeling so anxious about it all is just like, I can do what I can do. And the rest is not my problem, or not anything I should give energy to. So easier said than done, though,
sure.
Right?
Of course. For
sure.
Okay, so I want to go back in time just for a minute here. So let's take the Wayback Machine. And so you're doing salon work. You start getting some traction on the internet. Mm-hmm. At what point did you say, maybe I've got something here?
Yeah.
And then how did you take that moment and decide, here's what we're going to do?
At East Idaho Credit Union, we're changing the future of business with our Velocity Money Market account. You can receive unbeatable returns on tiered interest rates. We have rates up to 2.02% annual percentage yield. East Idaho Credit Union puts local businesses first because when you do better, we all do better. Federally insured by the NCUA.
So you're doing salon work. You start getting some traction on the internet. Mm-hmm. At what point did you say, maybe I've got something here?
Yeah.
And then how did you take that moment and decide, here's what we're going to do?
I think it was after my second video that I did with this brand. And what they did is, so they had been having like customers or just really cute girls like curling their hair online and like, this is how I curl my hair and I'm super pretty and like you could do it too maybe if you buy this,
Right.
And it was kind of just generic of like all these beautiful girls doing tutorials, right? We've seen all of them, like, but then the customer was sitting there like, okay, how do I just be pretty like that? I just want to be pretty. And when I got on, I went right to my comfort zone of like, I'm not a beauty blogger. I'm not as like stunningly beautiful as some of these girls, and I could sit there all day and like make myself feel inadequate, right? But I'm like, I know what I'm good at, and that is hair. Mm-hmm. I know hair. I know how to take care of it. I know how to teach it. I've been there, done that. So I went to that comfort zone and I taught, and they were like, oh my gosh, this was an insane response. People want more from you. Like, will you do another video next month? And I was like, I think this was like a one and done kind of deal. It was fun. But then I got my paycheck from my first video and it was like $12,000.
You're like, yeah, I can do
And
another.
I thought like, a couple $100, you know, that's why I was like,
Yeah.
oh, a couple $100 for curling my hair. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Just gonna do it
right?
anyway.
And then I get this $12,000 check, and me and my husband just jaws dropped, and we were like, oh my gosh, like I have to grind my butt off for a month, 2 months to make that much money. And I just made it in like a 30-minute video. Like,
Yeah.
what just happened, you know? And then
Yeah, I'm considering growing out my hair.
I
after
know.
you said that.
Seriously. And then I just was like, okay, this has got to be a fluke, right? So I'll do another video and see what happens,
Yeah.
you know? And I did, and it was like double that amount.
Oh my goodness.
And I was
Yeah.
like, there's something to this. I think we have hit something here.
Yeah.
Like, and so then my husband and I were like, okay, so this is a whole world that like I've never been a part of. But then thought to myself, it could bless our family immensely if this like, and yeah, it might be like, oh, this could be a fluke, and like maybe we got a couple good checks and we're going to be grateful for that, right?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
that blessed our lives immensely and incredibly. But then it got to the point where it was like there was so much more opportunity, and we were like, okay. And then we actually sat down, and my husband, I was like, I feel like I was having that mom guilt of, if I'm doing more, that means I'm doing less here, right? With my Mad Hatter hat on.
Yep.
And I was just like, for me personally, I didn't feel like I could like put my kids in childcare or hire like a nanny or anything like that and like successfully do what I wanted to do, that I was passionate about in this hair world of like teaching, knowing that like I was away from my kids, especially after like wanting them so bad and fighting for them so bad,
Yeah.
feeling like, I just don't know. I don't know if I can do this. So then my husband, we talked, and he wasn't in love with his job, and he had gone to school and gotten the degree and done all the things, you know, was the good boy and stayed in line. And we actually brought him home from the workforce so that he could be with our kids. And he's wonderful at it. But that was kind of when we're like, okay, if we're going to do this and we're going to like make it happen, like I need to know that my kids are with their dad, you know, if they're not with me. And so that has been a blessing that my husband, and it's a huge sacrifice because like he went and did all the things so that he could work and have a career. And so he sacrificed that so that I could grow in mine. And I always think like some people are like, oh, well, wouldn't it be nice to be a stay-home dad? And I'm like, no, it is a sacrifice.
Totally.
It's not like he's living this dream life. He's folding laundry. Like, do you want to be folding laundry? You know, so it's just interesting, but it's definitely a team effort to make it happen.
Yeah, I know my job is so much easier than my wife's. I wouldn't want to.
That's not for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not
for everyone.
It's
for
really
sure.
it's really not.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I want to go back to this moment where you got all this really great traction.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about what you did that people gravitated towards?
You know, I think, like, when I think of it just broad spectrum, I think it's because hair for people is a pain point.
Yeah.
And they were so desperate. And some people, like, when their hair is trashed, they're desperate to, like, get it back. I also think that, and this is something that several people have told me, and that for a while I was like, oh, thanks, whatever, you know. But I feel like I have tried really hard my whole life to just share things in like an honest and loving way, to be like genuinely helpful, right? Because I feel like at the end of the day, if I can lay my head down on my pillow and be like, I helped someone today, or I made someone feel better about themselves, or I made someone feel beautiful for the first time in a long time, like that was so incredibly rewarding for me. And that's part of why I love doing hair, and like seeing the women after you'd like finish their hair and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so beautiful. Thank you. You know, like that was such like, I'm like, oh, that was worth it all. That was worth the 12 hours on my feet today. And I just feel like it has been such a reward to be able to do that on such a bigger stage.
Yeah.
Because the feedback I've gotten has been absolutely like, I can't explain it. It's just made me feel so satisfied in my life of knowing that I have something to teach that can help people.
Yeah.
And it sounds silly because it's hair, right? But I think as time has gone on, I've been able to share more about my life, more about my family, more about like just being a mom and the struggles of life, and that everyone kind of has heavy stuff going on. And I think opening up to like, I'm actually like, I can teach you all about your hair, but I'm a person who has daily struggles and who is a mom crying in her closet sometimes because it was just a bad day for one of your kids, you know, and you're trying to like put on the strong face. But I think allowing people to see that side of me too, that I'm like this human being who's completely imperfect and just like going day to day, trying to make it happen, trying to find that balance, you know, that doesn't exist. But I think that has drawn people in also, is just being vulnerable and being willing to share the bad parts with the good. And obviously you don't want to share like all the good or all the bad. And there's a level of like wanting to protect certain parts of your life too. But it was funny because I'm like, people want it all until they don't, you know, and then they're like, oh, that was too much. You were chewing too loud. I don't like that. So it comes with all of the different angles of it. You know, people love you or they hate you, or, you know, it's a whole thing. So
it's unusual to be in the public eye.
For sure. And it's strange because I don't feel like I'm a public eye person.
Sure.
I'm like 6 years ago, I was a hairdresser that went to work and then came home, you know, and now it's like people see you and they watch you and they listen to you, and you realize like, wow, people see me and they watch me and they listen to me. And it's funny because I had a mom who saw me in Target, didn't say hello to me, but she was like, I saw you in Target. She DMs me later. And I wanted to say hi to you, but you were yelling at your kids. And I was like, oh, where's this going to go? She's like, and I just want to thank you for being a normal mom, because I yelled at my kids probably 5 minutes before that. And then I saw you, who I look up to so much, and you were yelling at your kids. And so I was like, okay, good. We're on the same page. So it's just funny because there's things like that where sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm so not perfect. And you might catch me in a moment where I'm yelling at my kids, you know, but that's just life. And
there's been this really interesting shift I've seen in social media over the last 2-ish, maybe 3 years, where it used to be very much about, and there's still a lot of this, but it was very much like people showing the 1% best part of who they are in their life, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm only showing you the picture of me
reel
on the beach in Hawaii, and that's it. And so they were showing this very modified, like romanticized version of their life. And I think people are getting tired of that.
Oh, so
actually.
totally. Yeah.
And so there's been this really big shift back to just really authentic, real kind of life. Yeah. And people are hungry for it, and they want that moment where they see, oh, we're the same kind of person.
Yes. When you feel like you're on an even playing field with someone, especially if you look up to that person. And I don't know, it definitely, I feel like it went from highlight reel to sometimes like all you see is a low light reel sometimes.
Sure.
And I feel like sometimes like people took it too serious, of like, well, people don't want to see that anymore, so now we're going to show them all the bad stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, there is like, I do have the goal of trying to like, here's the balance word again, but I think there is this movement of like, just be like disgusting and your house is messy and just like be slothful, whatever. Like you don't have to be healthy or anything like that. And there's a lot of that that's like overkill of like, you don't even have to try. You're perfect the way you are. And I don't believe that. I'm like, you're actually not perfect the way you are. And nobody is. And that's part of what I believe is the reason that we're here on this earth, and this whole journey is to like learn and to improve and to, you know, make mistakes and learn from them and become better. And it's not like just sit in your slothfulness and your idleness and like just be like, I'm perfect. I get what they're trying to say, but I'm also like, it's kind of a harmful message too, like to be like, you're perfect the way you are. It's like, yes, like you are beautifully made the way that God made you. But every day you can try to be better, and you can, And it's not that like you're failing if you're not, but it's like there's always room for improvement. And like everyone feels that in their own soul. Like I don't know anyone personally that's completely content with who they are, but they might be they might be trying to say that they are.
Totally.
And so I'm like trying to say that like I'm fine being this way and I'm fine sitting in my messy house. And I'm like, no, I don't feel good when my house is messy. Like my house feels more peaceful when it's clean. Is it always clean? Absolutely not.
Right.
Like, and I even hire help to pick up toys, like silly things. Like I'll scrub my own toilets, but I hire someone to like put my kids' toys away that get
I feel like I would go
out.
the other way on that
I know,
personally.
right?
Yeah.
It's funny. Like we pick and choose the things. And my husband and I have been like, okay, what are things that we absolutely hate doing? And we hire help for those things.
Sure.
It's like dishes, regular pickup. Like we'll do our own laundry and scrub our own toilets, but like we have someone doing dishes and like I don't know. It's just weird things.
That's okay.
And we kind of decided like whatever. But
I think you're right though. Like I've always felt like my life's purpose is to just become the best possible version of whatever I can be.
Right.
Yeah.
It's something I tell my kids all the time is like I love you right where you're at, but I love you way too much to leave you there.
Right.
Right.
I love that.
Like there's so much more to do.
There's so much more. There's always more. And I think when things get hard and challenging or something seems overwhelming or hard, it's like that's when you learn and grow and blossom and you're like, wow, you look back at yourself, a year ago and you're like, because I continued to push forward through the hard, like I'm a better person because of it,
Totally.
And I don't think you'd go back to yourself a year ago and be that person after what you've learned and how you've grown, so I think there's a lot to be said about like the in between of like showing the good days and showing that you have hard days and that you're human and that your house is messy sometimes or that you aren't the perfect body type or whatever. But I think it's that middle part of like relatability and
just like you driving to work.
Yeah.
Morning, right? Just like that middle line.
I
It's
know,
not
right?
one or the other.
Yeah, and it's just like seeing that people struggle, but
doing
also
your taxes.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that could be a whole segment. Jeez,
I'm just trying to think of like the most boring things
Oh
you
my
could do
gosh.
on social media.
Oh yeah.
Well, I've followed you for a couple years now on social media, and you are 100% the same person
Oh,
in
thank
person
you.
that you are on the internet. So
That's a huge compliment. I appreciate that very much.
it's awesome.
Thanks.
Okay, so let me ask you this for our listeners. What is kind of the undertone of all this as I apply it to kind of the business world is you're a absolute master marketer. You're not saying that, but you are, right?
I can sell stuff.
Yes. So what kind of advice would you give to the young entrepreneur who's trying to figure out how to get some traction on their business, trying to get stuff exposed, trying to get their first set of sales? Like, what advice would you give them?
At East Idaho Credit Union, we offer startup loans for emerging businesses to help support you in the early stages of growth. This could be for inventory, equipment, or other operating expenses. Almost all businesses qualify. Get started today by visiting us at eastidahocu.org/start, federally insured by the NCUA.
So what kind of advice would you give to the young entrepreneur who's trying to figure out how to get some traction on their business, trying to get stuff exposed, trying to get their first set of sales? Like, what advice would you give them?
My best piece of advice, I think, would be you can't sell to everyone. And my greatest, most powerful tool is when I started doing this, I was so nervous. And like, I was like, how am I going to sell things? And I obviously was like, okay, well, I did it and I was actually pretty good at it. But like, what was it that worked, And I think for me, I was talking to myself. And it's interesting because when you film stuff, you are talking to yourself.
That's
you
right.
see your own face in the camera and you don't see the people you're talking to. You see you. It's a reflection, right? And so I think to myself when I'm trying to market something or teach someone about something, I'm like, what would I want to know? What would Jasmine Rae want to learn? And I talk to her. So it's so simple. And I think like when people ask me like, oh, how are you so good at this? I'm like, it's easy. You talk to yourself. Like you look in the phone and that's who you see. and you think, I'm a mom, I have 4 kids, like, what am I going to buy? What's going to stick out to me? What's going to be useful and helpful to me? What are my pain points? You know, and I
Yeah.
just talk to that woman
Yeah.
because that's the woman that follows me
Right.
typically is my
Yeah,
demographic.
you are your own target market.
I am my own target
Yeah.
market. So it's so simple because you look at yourself and you're like, where do I shop? What do I buy? Because when I link things at Walmart or Target, they get the most clicks. Like
Mhm.
when I link something at Nordstrom, I don't get very many
Sure.
clicks because
Yeah.
my demographic isn't going to pay $80 for a shirt.
Mhm.
They want to pay $14 for the Target shirt, and it
Mhm.
looks just as good.
Mhm.
You know, it's like, I don't know. That's just who I am. And I feel like when you speak to that woman, that is like the greatest tool. Because when someone's trying to sell to everybody under the sun, you're not going to be successful because you don't know how to talk to everyone, you know?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. That has worked for me.
I mean, that's a master class in persona building is what that
Totally.
is. Like, it really is. Like, y- so many businesses think, and I've heard this so many times from people. I'll ask, oh, what's your target market? And they're like, everybody's our target market.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's not.
No, it's
I
not.
promise it's not.
Yeah.
I know you want that to be true.
You want that to be true.
But that's not true.
I feel like lucky for me, everyone, not everyone, most people have hair. So
Most, yeah.
when you were saying early, like men care too.
They do care. Yeah.
It's funny because when COVID hit and our salon got shut down,
Mhm.
and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm responsible for my employees to get paid. And like, I'm just was a little small fish and we were working in this tiny little studio.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, we're going to teach classes. We're going to give people what they want, what they've been asking for. So we did 1 class a week during that April month that we were all shut down. And our first class was for babies and toddlers hair care. And it was crazy because I was like, oh, maybe we'll sell a couple tickets, you know? And it sold out in like an hour. And
Wow.
we had like 2,000 tickets. It was like a
Wow.
virtual class and
Yeah.
we had limited seating because we had limited software. It was
Right.
really like, we don't know what we're doing and we
Right.
only have this Zoom and we'd have to upgrade. And we did not know what we were doing. And then the second class was teen and preteen hair care.
Mhm.
Moms loved that, ate it up because
Yeah.
no preteen wants to listen to their mother about like, this is how you should wash your hair. And they're like, Mom, you don't know anything, but they'll listen to someone else, right? An expert or like someone in social media. They're like, oh, listen to that girl, won't listen to my mom. So moms loved that. And then the class that sold out the fast was the men's class. And it was like
Oh,
men's
interesting.
hair care. It sold out in 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Wow.
And we actually upgraded that. We upgraded our Zoom to like the next one. So we sold like 5,000 tickets to the men's class.
Wow.
And then the last one was just for women, like top
Yeah.
to bottom. And we ended up selling, like we bought new softwares to get like more seats for that class. And it was so fun. It was so
Mhm.
fun. And all the classes were live. And it was just funny because I was just like, I cannot believe the men's one sold out in 5 minutes. And I was like, that's a market too. Because men,
It
like,
is.
they want their hair to look nice. They don't want to lose it, you know? And
No, of course not. Like, even bald men,
yeah.
they don't want to be going bald.
No.
Right? Like,
They
they're
may
not-
look good bald, but
Yeah.
it's like they'd probably rather have
They would
hair,
rather
maybe.
have hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny. We had this thing that we did at the credit union where on our senior team, we had a couple of women, a couple of men. And we were doing like this contest, and somebody recommended, they were like, if we do it, everybody shaves their head. And the women on the senior team were like, yeah, we're game. And it was,
It must have been very
it was
confident.
a couple of the men who were thinning
Uh-huh.
that were like, I'm holding on to what I've got. There's no way I'm shaving my
I'm
head.
keeping these 3 hairs on my head. It's so true.
It was pretty funny, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is funny. Yeah, and I'm like, yeah. Luckily, my demographic who want to learn about hair, like most everyone has hair, like from young to old.
Yeah.
They all want it's their daily accessory, you know.
Sure.
But I feel like when I speak most to myself and my like age range and my moms, you know,
Mhm.
that's when like I'm able to market things the best.
Well, I think sometimes we forget about that segment of people. Most of the buying power in households is through the wife.
Yeah.
Almost all the buying power
For
is
sure.
right there.
Yeah.
And like who you are working with and sell to and target to it's yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know. What about your family? Are you the one with the buying power?
Well, I don't know. My husband sometimes I'm like, what's this package? He's like, I don't know. I saw it on a Facebook ad. I'm like, stop buying stuff from Facebook ads. And he's like, that's how we make a living. And I'm like, oh, you're right. Okay. Certain things, you know.
It's so funny.
It's so funny. But yeah.
It is a potent market
Yeah.
to chase after, though.
For sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm definitely the one that's like, you know, buying all the things for the kids. And like when summertime rolls around, we gotta have these pool things and these goggles, you know, and it's like the mom that's taking care of all that, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're the ones clicking, and they're the ones that love the Amazon and the Prime and all the things, you know.
What do you feel like has been the hardest part in building your business? The most difficult thing you've had to overcome?
Oh man, I would say the ridicule. Because I'm someone who, and it's interesting because the advice people would give me is just don't care about what other people think.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, that's an interesting comment in my opinion, because I do care what other people think because I care about people.
Hard to turn that off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially care about what the people think, who are the people that I love. And so I'm like, I think sometimes when you put yourself out there, family and friends can be your biggest critics.
Yeah.
Which is sad,
It is.
right?
Yeah. Sometimes those are your biggest naysayers.
Yes.
And and they do it in such a like faux lovingly way
I know.
that it cuts you deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. And so when people are like, you just can't care what other people think. And I'm like, I can't just do that.
Yeah.
It's not something I can shut off.
Well, that's part of your magic too.
Oh, thank
right?
you.
and you turn that off and it's like, well.
Yeah, I don't know. And I even care a lot of the time, like speaking to like my moms that have the kids and like are trying to do all the things that are heavy laden in their day to day, you know, I'm like, I care about those women and I want to help them. And so I do, when someone says something mean to me, it hurts, you know.
Yeah.
I do feel like I'm someone who understands my worth 100% and like actually has a deep love for myself. Not in a way that I love myself, you know, but I like I like love my soul, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel very like content with myself. But with that being said, when someone says something mean, it's still hurtful.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you can't shut that part of your soul off where it's like, oh, you're trying to say something really mean and be hurtful, and it actually is hurtful, you know? So I feel like you do have to have a thicker skin, but I think you can have a thicker skin still with a soft heart.
Thick skin, soft heart.
Yeah, and I think the thick skin is like, I know my value, I know my worth, I know what Susie's saying is mean, and I know it doesn't change how I feel about myself, but it's still hurtful.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think that's the hard part, is just trying to realize also that like when people do say hurtful things, I try to put myself in their shoes and be like, what's going on with this person? And a lot of the time people will also say me, and I just obviously I'm not a great listener to the advice people give me, but they'll be like, just ignore those women. Just ignore those mean women, those haters, you know. And a lot of the time I don't. Sometimes if I'm feeling very salty, I will put them on blast, which I don't recommend. I never tag their name or anything. But usually I will just respond saying like, hey, that was actually really hurtful. And I'm just a mom trying to show up here in a way that is authentic and real and helpful. And those words are very hurtful.
Right.
And I'll just say that to them. And 98% of the time, the woman will come back and say, I am so sorry.
Yeah.
You are right. And I've had an awful day. Or this is what's going on with me. Sometimes it opens up a conversation of like the pain they're going through.
Yeah.
And I've been able to tell these women, like, your words are impactful. And once you say them, you can't get them back.
Yeah.
So like, be mindful of that no matter what you're going through. Like, realize that like those are things, especially when you take the time to type them out, because it's almost like predetermined. Like you're like, oh, I'm gonna say this, and and it's like
you had to think about
in
it.
writing, right? It's not just floating in the air as words; it's in writing. And I'll be like, just remember that like these women that you're coming after, like they're real people with kids and like their own struggles, and like just try to look inside and be like, why do I feel like I need to say this to this person? I've had some amazing conversations with some really hurting women.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a key element there, which is when people make those kind of comments, it actually is saying more about them than it is about you.
Yeah.
Because they're expressing whatever that pain is that's festering inside of them.
For sure.
And it just comes out kind of in some ugly ways.
Yeah.
But it's really not about you.
No. And it's like you have to get to a place where you realize that,
Yeah.
But it's just an interesting world for sure. And I feel like, excuse me, burp. It's a Diet Pepsi getting to me. I have like 90% cheerleaders that are just so uplifting. But then you have that other 10% that just really like sits with you, Yeah. And that's how it is with everything, right? It's like you can have like all this success, and I'm sure you guys could have like a million good podcasts, and then you have one person who's like, this really sucked. You guys aren't very good at what you do. And you'll never forget that person.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Mean, it just sits with you. And so I think it is really important to get to a place where you can truly be settled with your own soul and like be confident with who you are and have a love for yourself. And I think that's when it opens up the doors and windows to be understanding and to be able to like effortlessly love others too.
Yeah.
Like where they're at, It takes time to get there though. And it took me time to get there because like Jasmine 5 years ago would probably just be like, screw you, lady. You're a real bitch. Yeah, it took me time to get there, but it's definitely like not for the faint of heart, I would say.
Yeah.
Do you ever have to just ignore the comment section, or do you ever recommend to somebody like, just don't even look at it?
Post and ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Facebook is a very cruel place for me. And I don't get on Facebook. I do have content that's pushed there with other brands and things. And I'll do live videos over there sometimes, but I never look at the comments ever. I did like the first year, but then I was like, absolutely not. I cannot allow myself to go there. People on Facebook are ruthless. So I hang out on Instagram a lot more, but I feel like Instagram's where like my people, my demographic, I feel like all the Karens are on Facebook. But it's just interesting because I actually had a time where when I first started doing it, I have a very pointy chin. Okay.
You do? Let's see that thing.
And like in person, people would never notice. But
I haven't
when I'm
noticed
on
that.
film and I'm in certain lighting, it'll look like a perfect little circle, like a perfect little bouncy ball stuck in my face or something. And I started, doing all these videos, and I was doing some makeup videos too. And oh my gosh, people were so mean about my chin. And they would say the most awful things like, what's that tumor on your face? Or
Oh my
you got
gosh.
botched implant surgery on your chin. Like you should sue your doctor.
Oh my
I'm like, you guys, I just got a weird chin. Okay, back off. Like I'm not perfect. Be nice, And so it was like thousands of comments on my videos. My assistant finally went in and learned that you can ban words like on your page. So she banned the word chin because people were commenting on my chin so much. Like so silly. I'm like, come on, people, get a hobby. Like, and so it's funny because I found myself as a grown woman crying in the corner of my closet because people were so mean about something that I was always self-conscious about too. Because people were like, I never really noticed. And it's like, but in pictures, if there's a flash, it just captures it just right where it looks like a tiny little bouncy ball. And I was always so self-conscious as a kid. And like some of my cousins would tease me and like grab my chin. I was just okay, like everyone has like different things they don't love about themselves or would like to change, right? And so I'm like, grown woman, never shed a tear over people like teasing me about my chin, but I'm like bawling in my closet because I went on Facebook and made a mistake of reading the comments, So I was just like, oh wow, this is a thing, and this is gonna be a thing, and I'm just like, okay, well, we're just not gonna go there anymore. We're just not gonna go to the comments. And I do still hear things about it occasionally, but I'm like, it's whatever. Like, but you have to get there. And like I said, you have to grow a little bit of thick skin to be able to take the kind of ridicule, the silly things.
Yeah.
Such silly things, and I'm like, I don't even post stuff that's even like super controversial. It's just they'll find whatever to dig at you for,
Yeah, strange things.
Yeah.
I did a social media post one time, and same thing. I made the mistake of reading the comments about it, and it was something that I didn't even notice. Anyway, there was a fair number of comments talking about how tight my pants were and how uncomfortable it made them.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, what?
So funny. You're like, okay, well,
I'm glad you noticed. Yeah.
I wore them on purpose.
Not bad. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's so funny. I feel like it's a trend now to like people are reposting things and they're like, I ran to the comments to see what people were saying about this post. Most of it's hilarious, but it's like, yeah, there's that aspect for sure. And you just got to tread lightly. It's interesting.
My goodness.
Yes.
What's it like having people recognize you in public?
Oh, it is weird because I'm like, I'm not a celebrity. I'm not anybody more important than anyone else. And I've always felt that way, like, so that aspect is strange when someone meets you and is like a major fangirl. It's funny. I was with my assistant one time. We were in an airport in Arizona, and this lady came up to me, and she's like, Jasmine. And I was like, hi, how are you? And she's like, good. And I'm like, are you guys on vacation? And I just started talking to her like she was an old friend. And she had to stop me mid-conversation and say, you've never met me. And I was like, oh, I know. But like, you know me, and we're friends.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, I just want to make sure that you knew you hadn't met me before.
Yeah.
And my assistant was even like, do you know her? And I found that like, what is another challenge for me in this whole social media world is I feel like people know me. They know my kids. They know some of our struggles. They've seen me laugh, cry. Like I've taught them things. They feel like I am a friend.
Right.
Which I love. But then I have the aspect of, I have all these friends and I'm the worst friend because I don't know any of their names. I don't follow them. I'm such a jerk friend, And so I feel like it's such an opportunity and something I have so much gratitude for when I do get to meet people and hug people, because I get to thank them. Like, and one of the first things I'll say is like, they're like, I follow you. And I'll be like, thank you so much for being there for my family. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, like just you being there, like that supports me and my kids.
Yeah.
You help pay our bills. Like you are important to me. And a lot of the time they're like, that's not the response I was thinking, But I truly have a deep gratitude for people. And when I get to see their faces and like physically like hug them, and I do feel like it should be like a long lost friend, because they
have a deep relationship with you.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I'll be like, are these your kids? I'm like, oh my gosh, they're the same age. Like, and I've actually become friends with some people that I met. And like a couple years ago, I went on this journey in Hawaii and got a little woo woo and like did some deep soul searching into like my purpose, right? Like outside of just like my general beliefs, but it was like, who am I? Like, what can I offer to the world? Me personally, what makes me unique and special? And I really dug into that, and it was very enlightening. And so much so that I like wanted to share that with my staff. So I took my staff out there, and they all dug deep, and they found parts of themselves they'd never really discovered or didn't know existed, and learned a lot about themselves. And then I was like, I want to host retreats for women. Like I was on this kick, like this high of like, I really want to help people like dig deeper, and like find their deep rooted purpose, because we're all so individually unique in what we have to offer. And I did that for 2 weeks and then found out I was pregnant with my last baby. And I was like, okay, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
And we had 2 groups of women. And still to this day, I feel like a lot of those women are like part of my journey. And like we stay in touch. And it's hard because all of a sudden I had like 30 new friends. And I'm like, oh man, I can't like call all 30 of my friends every day. And like that was another aspect of like I got to know these women kind of more on like a deep level and learn things about them that maybe nobody in their family even knew, you know? And so it was like, you made this connection with these women. And I was like, oh, is it realistic for me to keep doing this?
Yeah.
I wanted to, I just didn't have the capacity. Like I didn't have the energy. And I'm like, if I'm putting so much energy in here, which was required, it took away from my kids and my family. And so I finally had to get to a point where I was like, that was beautiful for the time. But like now I'm pregnant and now like I just, maybe that happened for a reason when it did. And like, I just had to be done with that. But I don't know. I love opportunity to make connection with people on a level that's like outside of just saying hi, you know?
Sure.
Because I feel like they've been there and supported us just by being there, that it feels very rewarding to get to see people's faces. Even like in DMs, I try to be in DMs a lot and I still can't get to them all, but like everybody's face is this tiny little bubble. It's like the size of a pea, you know? It's one girl I met and she's like, I'm Taylor. Like we talk all the time. And I'm like, Taylor?
Oh, great to hear.
You're way bigger than this little pea-sized bubble, you know? And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, you know? So it was funny. I love seeing the faces though and getting to squeeze people.
So what's next? What's coming? What's on the horizon for you?
That's a good question. I ask myself that a lot. It's hard because like I feel like things are ever changing in social media. And like even now, I have gotten away from sharing educational content and I'm kind of like a daily journal right now. I'm just sharing our day-to-day life and sharing more products that I like and doing more affiliate stuff, sponsored content. And like just a lot of the time I will be like, I love this sleep sack that I got for Violet. It's so freaking good. And I'll reach out to the company like, hey, do you want to work together? Can I get a code? Like I want to share your product and we'll work something out where it's beneficial for both of us. Right.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of that kind of stuff, which is not hair, but it's still been fun in its own way. Cause it's like things I recommend as a mom or as like, you know, stuff that I like, makeup, whatever, clothes. But people are craving the hair education to come back and to be like revamped, right?
Yeah.
So right now I'm trying to figure out what that looks like because there's so many different options. It's like, oh, Instagram now has like subscription and it's like, okay, well, that makes me nervous. Like I gave away this information for free for years and now I'm going to charge people for it. That doesn't feel right to me. But I also have to understand that like this is my time and it's a lot of value that I have to offer. And like I could do it in a way. And I've also like explored YouTube. Like what if I revamped my education and shared more of what I know over YouTube and treated it as like a Netflix series.
Yeah.
Like because people can digest that really easily. They're like, oh, this is a season, this is an episode, you know, and it's like a verbiage they're very familiar with. So I've thought about going to YouTube and like creating like seasons of different topics and have like short episodes that are like 15 minutes long of revamping my knowledge. Cause right now it's like all in the highlight bubbles and there's no captions. There's no nothing. It was back when you just used to like film yourself and people would listen. Right. And now it's like everyone on social media has ADD when it comes to like, if I'm not entertained in the first 3 seconds, I'm gone.
I'm out here.
and it's like that's how we've been trained, and that's how they've given us all ADD of social media. Yeah. And so I'm just like, okay, I need to start making reels, and I should probably get on TikTok. And oh my gosh, it's just so much that I'm like, what do I actually do? And my husband's like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what feels like? What do you feel passionate about? Like, what would work? What would Jazz want? You know, like. And so I'm in that ground of like realizing that's going to take a lot to get all that revamped and like put like in an organized way for people. And like, I want it to be more easily digestible where they can have links and like just make it easier for them because that's what people want. They
Yeah.
want it to be easier.
Yep, they sure do.
They don't want to have to click more than twice, you know.
Mhm.
It's just that whole
Isn't
thing.
that funny? People
Yeah.
are like, oh, it's exhausting.
You're
I
like,
click
I have
4
to
times.
click
for
out
this
of
thing.
this click to get to the link. Go back. Yeah. And sometimes when you click on an Instagram link, it sends you to like this page. It's like, follow this link. And you have to click it again. I get annoyed with that.
Yeah,
And
you're
I'm
like, that's outrageous. I don't have time
another
for that.
click. But it's true. It's like the internet has trained people to be impatient, lazy,
Yep.
and like hard to entertain
Yes.
because there's so much content out there. So I think as a creator or as an educator, it's like, well, how the heck do I do this in a
Mhm.
way that people are going to like receive it well, you know,
Mhm.
or that it will actually be helpful. So I'm kind of in that realm right now of trying to figure that out. And I've worked with so many different companies and I've collaborated on product lines that I've created with other companies. And I feel like I'm getting and this is like not common knowledge. Not very many people know
Okay.
this. It's a little bit of a secret.
You heard it here first.
I know, but I would love to ultimately like have my own product line.
Yeah.
Like I have,
I'm sort of shocked you don't already.
I know, right? And
Yeah.
people have said that. I think what's very terrifying is I can sell someone else's stuff all day. And like it's easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
But then the minute I go to sell my own stuff, that's terrifying.
Well, it's all you.
It's all my eggs are in my own basket. And right now I'm
That's
like, I got an egg in their basket and their
That's right.
basket. And like I can just share it and they send me a paycheck and that's like whatever. But now I'm
You have
like,
like some distance
Right.
from it. Yeah, I follow.
but then it's like you kind of wear these like, I don't know, like ball and chain a little bit to these companies
Sure.
where it's like, it's still yours and I get a cut of it, which is great.
But
And I
it's
don't-
yours.
But it's yours.
Yeah.
And like it's nice because they do all the back end stuff and
Mhm.
the customer service. And it's funny,
Mhm.
some people be like, "Hey, my sprayer went out on this," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not customer service
Oh,
for
yeah.
this."
You should definitely call
And it's
them.
hard because it's like, well, I bought it on your recommendation. I'm like, I still don't know what's going on with your sprayer. So like, you're gonna need to reach out to the company, you know. So it's just interesting because I'm like, I want to, like, and it's hard because I've had like the limitations of like, oh, well, when I created my own product line, it's like, I wanted these certain ingredients taken out and some replaced, and they're like, oh, well, we can't do that. And I was like, why not? Well, it's too expensive.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, like how much more expensive? And it was like pennies, right?
Sure.
And I know it adds up, but I was like, okay, so I got my hands tied here and,
Yeah.
you know, and
Mhm.
finally I was like, well, if you don't take the aluminum out of it, I'm not going to
I'm
let
out.
you put my name on it.
Yeah.
Like, and so they finally did.
Mhm.
And they replaced it with the ingredient I wanted, but it was a battle, man, like
Yeah.
to try to get what I wanted. And still at the end of the day, like I feel like if I could have done it myself, I could have made it that much more better and perfect, you know? And so that's where I'm at, where I'm like, okay, we need to come out with like my own things because then they can truly be what I would
Yeah.
want them to be, you know?
Yeah.
No limitations. So
yeah.
that's in the works. And
It's very exciting.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's also very scary.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, hopefully it will be a successful thing when it does come out. I do feel like there's a lot more heat riding on selling your own products than there
Yeah.
is selling someone else's. Because
Yeah. Because then when they say your sprayer's broken, you're like, well, you used it wrong.
I know.
It's perfect. I know it's perfect.
Oh, that is our problem. Shoot. Okay, let's get you with customer service, and then you gotta have a customer service team that's good. You know, so it's just like a whole nother world I'm diving into that is exciting. But I'm like, this is where everything needs to head now. You know, so
Yeah.
yeah, scary, but very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What other pieces of advice would you give? Kind of your last thoughts of advice that you'd give to young entrepreneurs kind of following in your footsteps.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because I feel like people see what they see and they think like, "Ugh, like you're just so successful and it's just so easy, and like they see what they see and it's like it seems simple, right?
Yeah.
Oh, she can just get on and share and like sell stuff. It's so simple, right? And it's funny because I think a lot of people who've found me in the last little while, like they didn't see me grinding behind the chair,
Mm.
working 12-hour days,
Yeah.
5-6 days a week, putting my husband through school,
Yeah.
buying our first house, like while he was in school. Like I worked so hard And I don't think without that work that I could possibly be in the position I am today. And it's funny because even like with my salon and my employees, what I am trying to create for them is a shortcut.
Yeah.
But what I have learned is that I'm doing a disservice to them by making them skip the really hard parts.
Yeah.
Because then it's like sometimes they don't fully have an understanding of how good they have it
Yeah.
because they didn't have to grind, you know?
Yeah, it's true.
So I'm like, I want to help you skip like the 12-hour days on your feet where you literally want to die at the end of the day and you can't like put your towels in the wash because you're so tired and you can't see straight, you know, and I want to help them skip all that so that they can just like skip ahead to like, I'm working with an assistant right out of hair school and I'm, you know, did it. And it's funny because my assistant has said to me, like, I think we have good intentions, but I think the grind is so crucial to people's success.
Well, it turns them into something important.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I also feel like the people who have it in them to get through the grind, to get to that spot, are the people who, like, they earned it, you know?
Yeah.
And I know there are some, like, sensations that, like, maybe went viral overnight, you know? But I think that's something that I would say is, like, if you're not willing to put in the work, then it's not going to happen, you know? And I feel like for me, the online aspect is more work than a lot of things I've ever done.
Well, I think people think it's easy.
Yes.
But it's not.
It's not just like, oh, I'm going to shoot a little video.
Yeah.
It's so fun and easy.
And
it's
just,
not that.
And it never shuts off.
Yeah.
It never shuts off. There's always people waiting for you. There's always people like, and it's funny because I have a good friend who she saw someone she looks up to that she follows who has a lot of followers in town. And she like said hi to them and they were like, oh, hi. They were with their family. They said hi. They weren't unkind. But she was like, that was rude.
Oh.
And I was like, hold up. Like, you got to understand, like, this is a weird thing, right? Like, they weren't mean to you. And, like, she's
They're
like,
just going to pick up a prescription at
Yeah.
the store, you know.
I know. And, like, she's like, well, sometimes I DM them and they don't answer me back or they just like my comment. They don't even say anything back. And I'm like, and I, like, showed her my inbox just for reference. And I was like, this is never ending and it never shuts off. And it can absolutely consume you to the point where you have no idea what's going on around you because you're so like trying to get through it all and you're trying to edit things and you're trying, you know, like, and sure, like you can hire a lot of that off once you get to a point where you're like, okay, I can hire some help.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, you can't hire help. You have to
can't.
do it all yourself.
You do.
And you have to do it amongst everything else you're still doing in your life.
Right.
And so I would just say, like, be willing to put in the time and understand that it doesn't shut off and that you have to create also like boundaries for yourself. That's something I still struggle with because I'll stay up till 1 a.m. trying to answer people's DMs just to be helpful, you know, like, and I've realized like I need to go to bed. Like I need to take care of me. I need to get some sleep. Like I know like when all my kids go to bed, that's when I'm like, okay, it's go time. But then I find myself like looking at my husband and I'm like, have you been sitting there this whole time? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, ugh, like we need to like have hours basically, like a real job, because that's the thing is like you create those hours and you can let it go 24/7 or you can take the weekends off or you can be done at 5:30, you know, like, or you can not have late hours at like 1 and 2 in the morning where you're just trying to dive through as many as you can. Like, so it's a lot of hard work. And I think if you're willing to power through the beginning and the grind and like a lot of it seeming like it's not working, like you will get somewhere and you will grow eventually. But nowadays it's way more challenging than it was 6 years ago too. So I don't know. It is.
I think there's something so interesting about going back to a comment you made earlier about like do the hard work.
Yeah.
Especially when you're young.
Yeah.
Do the hard work.
I know. They have to.
You just have to.
Yeah.
There was this kid that contacted me, and he was trying to get a job on a ranch, and he had this interview that he was going to, it's like a working interview, so he was going to go work on the ranch for a day, and that was going to be his interview. And he was just asking me for some advice, and I was like, just go do all the jobs nobody wants to do.
Yeah.
Like fix the fence, like open
Scoop up the
gates for
poop.
people. Yes, like do the stuff that nobody wants to do. And first of all, they'll love you for it.
Yeah.
But mostly it's going to turn you into something that people will want to follow one day.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
So
Yeah.
true.
I honestly feel like my one employee who is like always like scrubbing the floor and like finding something to do. She never is holding still. And she's like, you know, doing the things nobody else wants to do. And that's the kid I notice the most, you know, is I'm like, okay, you're going to go places because you're willing to like put in the shoulder work, you know? And so there's so much to be said about that work ethic. And it sadly is hard to find. And if you have it and you're willing to put it in, like you will get to where you want to be eventually, but it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah. My old man used to always tell me, he's like, you've got no business not being the hardest worker in any room you walk in.
Yeah, I love
like
that.
you have to do that.
Yeah.
Just as a prerequisite for
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
100%. And like people will notice that. They will not miss like you out there doing those things.
For sure.
Yep.
Are you on the Lemon8 app?
I'm not. I have recently just seen people get on it. What is it even? Is it like a
It's the hot new thing.
oh boy.
It's like a cross.
Another thing, great.
It's like really a cross between like Pinterest and Instagram. I feel
Okay.
like the most.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's weird, but
Yeah.
a lot of
I
people
got
are,
on it yesterday. It's very strange.
Okay.
yeah.
So is it like stories or just pictures?
There's a mix of like picture content and video.
Okay.
It's different.
Yeah.
It doesn't flow the same as Instagram, so I don't know that I love it. But all the cool kids are doing it, it feels like. So
That's
it's like
funny.
you just have to
That
jump
was like
in.
what was the app that came out? A couple it was like where Be Real. That was
Oh,
huge.
yeah.
And I was like, I think I was too late to the game and I think it's fizzled out now.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it hasn't, but I'm just like, wait, so like you have to take a picture right when the alarm goes off? Like, I don't got time for that.
Yeah. Who's doing this? Yeah, come on.
There's so many new concepts. But yeah, I'll have to look into that one.
Yeah.
Lemon8.
It's hard to want to learn like a new platform.
It is,
Yeah.
It's like I
So
have
much work.
So
Yes.
little motivation to learn a new platform.
know.
Yeah.
There's always something new, and you're just like, I can't even keep up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even really on TikTok even because I'm like, that's a whole nother fish to fry. You know, like,
That's
I don't know.
the easiest one to me.
I think so.
It's
That's
so
what people have said.
simplistic. Yeah.
And they're like, that, like, a lot of people are like, with your personality, I think you'd thrive on
Oh,
TikTok.
you
Yeah,
do
you would.
so
You
good.
totally would.
Yeah.
It's more like you just show up and post what you post, and like, you don't really have to overthink it, you know?
Yeah.
It's very short form kind of
Yes.
Yeah.
format.
Yeah.
and-
So, like, yeah, maybe there's something to that.
Yeah.
True.
Those are the easiest ones for me to do because
Yeah.
I can bust out 10
Yeah.
in 10 minutes.
Right.
And that's kind of nice. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're no good, but you can do that.
But
right?
hey, you can, and you're not going to get as harsh of judgment.
That's true.
Or the algorithm's not going to punish you.
No, not so much.
Oh my gosh.
This is so random, but you've obviously tried a lot of different products. What's the like one thing you're like, moms, you can't live without this product?
Oh man. So my slogan forever was dry shampoo and push through. And I feel like dry shampoo is a heaven send when you are hair training, but it can be overused, like really horribly. And if you overuse it, your hair could actually fall out. So it's kind of
Whoa.
like this, I know, this magical product of like helping you get through. But I mean, I've seen women like, they're like trying to stretch way more days than they should be. And they're like dousing their head with dry shampoo. And I'm like, okay, no bottle of dry shampoo or amount in the world is going to save what's going on. Just go wash your hair, you know? So I feel like, in learning how to use it the correct way, because I only use dry shampoo once, maybe twice in my wash cycle, which is like 17 days. So, and that's like, you got to train yourself to get there, which, it's all what I teach about. But I would say good dry shampoo, and that will be my first product I come out with of my own.
Love it.
Oh,
So exciting.
right.
Yep. Pretty exciting. So yeah, there's a lot of bad ones out there, and there's a lot of really terrible ingredients that are like known carcinogens, and
Oh no.
and they're super cheap. I
And
mean,
we're
people are
rubbing
like,
it on our bodies?
I know, and
That's
like
not
putting
good.
on your scalp. I don't know. And so it will take time because I want to do it right, and I want to have a product that can be not killing you, slowly.
it. I can
But
support that.
I know there's
Yeah.
just so much junk out there. It's hard to sift through, and people just don't know. That's the hard thing. And once they start to learn, I mean, there's a really popular dry shampoo ingredient that is in probably 75% of dry shampoos that has come out that it's like a now known carcinogen. It's benzene. So it's like super, sketchy. So trying to get the right formula, do it exactly how I'd want it. And so it's in the works.
We had somebody on not long ago who does like wellness beauty products and stuff, and we got to talking about my skincare routine,
Oh, funny.
or the fact that I just don't there is no skincare
Oh, yeah,
routine.
most men don't.
She was horrified by what I told her. She thought I was absolutely insane.
Like, I
Yeah.
just rub my face with my towel that I just wipe my butt on. So,
And what's wrong with that?
Your
Yeah.
skin looks pretty nice. I think it's working for you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I walked out feeling so self-conscious. I was like, I've been missing this whole thing that maybe I should have been doing. And her husband was there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I do it." And I was like, "Oh, oh no."
You know what's annoying, though, is I feel like us women spend all this money on these skincare products, and then it's like, as we age and men get gray and wrinkly, they still are more handsome and distinguished.
Yes.
It's like, oh, he's handsome with his gray hair and his
It's not fair.
his
is
crow's
it?
feet. He actually looks distinguished.
It's
And we're
not.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
We look haggard as heck over here with our gray hair and our wrinkles that we're trying to Botox out. And
So
yeah,
true.
it's just, you can't
Yeah.
win.
It's unfair.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
We've created the monster,
Yeah.
though. Like, who were we kidding?
What's your message to the world?
Oh, that's a heavy hitting question. Honestly, going back to like my woo woo state in Hawaii, what I kind of discovered about myself was that I think as human beings, we have such a capacity to love. And I think nowadays, because there's people celebrating their differences, right? But there's also people fighting about their differences. And everything is about differences. And we all want to shout them at the rooftops. But then everybody is so, like, controversial about it all. And I think the cool thing is, like, as a human race, we all have the capacity to love each other, even if we're different. It's like you can still offer to love someone, even if you don't agree on something. And you don't, do things the same. And I think for me, realizing that the more I found like parts of myself and my own soul of like learning how to love myself, and just as a Christian, it's like, first commandment, love God. Second commandment, love thy neighbor as thyself. So I'm a firm believer of like, you can have a larger capacity to love if you learn how to love yourself well. And that's hard for people because we're always being told we're not enough, or, there's, just sit where you're at. Like, you don't have to try harder, and it's just like when you can kind of dig deep and figure out what makes you uniquely you and what you have to offer the world, you can be like, wow, I'm pretty great. Like, I'm pretty cool. And I have the ability to allow others to feel that way and allow others to learn to love themselves. And I just think it sounds cliche, but I feel like that's what we're lacking the most in our world today is just people feel guarded with their love. They're like, oh, well, I'm only going to give it to the people that deserve it, And it's like, everyone deserves it. Like, if you just give it and realize the more you give, the more you have the capacity to give. And you're like filled with more of it because you feel content with yourself and in loving who you are, that you can give it more to others. And then it allows them to do the same. And I just feel like our kids too kind of have put their guards up, and I feel like I don't ever want my kids to feel like someone has to earn their respect. I'm like, no, you just respect people and you love them where they're at and you encourage them to do the same. And like at the end of the day, I think that would be like the answer to everything, right? But just love, I guess, would be my answer to that.
Great
It's
answer.
really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're making me cry over
Great
here.
answer.
Oh
good.
man, it's not complex. It's pretty simple, but we make it complex.
We sure do.
Yeah.
Jasmine, thank you so much for being
Thank
on with
you.
us
This
today.
was so fun.
Yeah, we had a great time. Great advice.
Yes,
great insights.
I was nervous, but you guys just made it so easy. Could just keep chatting for days. So
Well, yeah. It wasn't hard.
oh, thank you.
Sometimes it is. No, it wasn't with you. No.
Oh, you guys are great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on. Thank you for joining us on the DRGN SLYR podcast by East Idaho Credit Union. We'll see you next time.
Woo!